The burning planet and the vanished princess. The sky was not blue. It was red. The planet of Valdoria burned under heavy bombs, firestorms, and crashing ships. Once a beautiful world of silver mountains and glowing trees, now it was a place of death. Inside the shining palace, the alien queen stood tall. Her body glowed like molten crystal, her eyes like burning stars. Soldiers shouted around her, preparing to defend the royal family. But the queen looked only at one thing, her youngest daughter. She was small, with soft violet skin and silver eyes. She wore a gold band on her forehead, the royal symbol. The child's name was Yalari. She held tightly to her mother's robe. "Mommy, I'm scared," she whispered. The queen bent down, her face softened. "You are brave, Yalari. You will survive. You must." Outside, explosions shook the palace walls. The queen turned to a tall female guard. "Take her," the queen ordered. "Run. Hide. Keep her safe at any cost." The guard bowed quickly and took the child into her arms. Yalari cried, but the guard ran through the back tunnels of the palace away from the fire. Behind them, the palace screamed as it burned, but they didn't get far. Enemy machines spotted them. The guard fought bravely, using energy blades and smoke grenades. But she was outnumbered. She hid Yalari in a fallen pipe and turned to face the attackers. Gunfire. Screams. Then silence. Yalari crawled out, but no one was left. The 5-year-old girl walked alone through a ruined city. The ground was hot and her tiny feet burned. Her dress was torn, her forehead band cracked. Her lips were dry and her eyes full of fear. She did not know where her mother was. She only knew fire and pain. For 3 days, she wandered. She was almost invisible now, covered in ash, weaker each day. Then one night, under a broken bridge, a light appeared. It was not alien light. It was human. The human soldier's name was Jackson Kane. He was not part of the main army anymore. His ship had crashed during the last battle. He had been walking alone, trying to find a way off the planet, when he saw something strange, a small shape, not moving, half buried in ash. He raised his gun, slowly, then stopped. It wasn't a threat. It was a child, an alien child. She looked up at him with silver eyes wide and full of terror. Jackson lowered his weapon. "Hey, easy, kid. I'm not going to hurt you." Yalari backed away, her body shaking. Jackson sighed. He dropped his gun and slowly took off his helmet, showing her his face. A long scar crossed his cheek. His brown eyes looked tired but kind. "I'm human. You're one of them, right? Valdorian?" he asked. Yalari didn't speak. "Can you talk?" Still nothing. Jackson crouched down, reached into his bag and pulled out a small protein bar. He opened it, broke it in half, and offered it. The girl stared. Then, with shaky hands, she took it. And for the first time in days, she ate. Jackson watched her. He saw the golden band, cracked but still shining. He'd seen that design before in war briefings. It belonged to the royal family. His heart skipped. This wasn't just a child, she was a princess. Jackson looked around. If she was alive, someone would be hunting her. He thought of calling in to his commanders. But then he looked at her again. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a threat. She was just a scared, hungry little girl. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her. "Come on," he said softly. "You're coming with me." Yalari didn't answer, but this time she didn't back away. She let him lift her, and for the first time since her world had burned, she closed her eyes in someone's arms, the human's arms. Far away, back in the ruins of the palace, the queen sat on her broken throne. Her hair was singed, her robe torn. Her hands shook. She stared at the burned medallion found in the forest, her daughter's medallion. The guard was dead. No sign of the child. The queen closed her eyes, and a tear fell. Everyone believed the princess was gone. even her mother. But she wasn't gone. She was with him, and nothing in the galaxy could have predicted what would happen next. The sun rose over the burned city, but it gave no warmth. Smoke covered the sky like a blanket of ash. The wind was dry and carried the smell of death. But under a broken metal roof, two lives had quietly found each other. Jackson Kane, the human, soldier, sat beside a small fire. Across from him, the alien girl, Yulari, slept with his coat wrapped tightly around her small body. She didn't speak, not even in her own language. She just stared, flinched at loud sounds, and sometimes cried silently at night. Jackson didn't know what to do with her. He had fought against her kind. He had lost friends. He had seen alien weapons tear through human lines, but now he was protecting one of them. And not just any alien. She wore the royal mark, a princess. He watched her as she slept, clutching a cracked medallion in her tiny hand. It had a royal seal, golden wings, wrapped around a star. He remembered seeing that same symbol during a military briefing. It was on the Queen's robe. The Queen of Valdoria, the one whose child had vanished during the siege. Jackson rubbed his forehead. What the hell have I gotten myself into? He could report it. Send a signal to HQ. They'd pay him for the information, maybe even promote him. But when he looked at the girl's small frame, her pale, bruised skin, and the way she trembled even in sleep, he couldn't do it. She wasn't a weapon. She was just a child. Later that day, Yulari opened her eyes. Her lips moved slightly. Jackson leaned in. What is it? Her voice was soft, like wind through broken glass. Papa. Jackson froze. Me? He asked. Yulari blinked at him. Papa? Saved me? He didn't answer. What could he say? He stood and packed their things. They couldn't stay here long. Patrols were still moving through the ruins. Human and alien. Some would shoot on sight. Others would take her and sell her to the highest bidder. Jackson carried Yulari in his arms as they moved from shadow to shadow. She didn't cry anymore. She simply held on tight. His body ached from old wounds. His leg still burned from a laser cut. But he kept walking. He had to. For her. At night, they found shelter in an old train station. The roof had holes. The seats were broken. But there was water nearby, and it was quiet. Jackson used a cracked mirror to check his wounds. Infection was setting in. He wouldn't last much longer without medical help, but he wasn't worried about himself. His eyes kept moving. To her, Yulari was growing weaker. She needed food, clean water, care, and someone who knew how to treat her alien body. He pulled out the medallion again, studying it. Was there still a way to get her home? Would her people even accept a human carrying their royal blood, or would they kill him the moment he stepped near? That night he had a dream. He stood before a massive throne. The alien queen sat above, cold and powerful. Her voice was sharp. You brought her back, but you're still my enemy. Then the dream changed. Yulari stood between them, holding both their hands. Family, she whispered. Jackson woke up with a gasp and a decision. The next morning, he found an old data pad in a fallen truck. It had weak power, but still worked. He used it to search for one thing, a map to the Valdorian capital. It was hundreds of miles away and across enemy territory. But that's where she belonged, and he would take her there, or die trying. Yulari watched him as he made a sling out of cloth to carry her on his back. He looked at her and gave a small smile. We're going home, princess. She tilted her head. Home? Yes, he said softly. To your mother. She said nothing, but her tiny hand reached up and touched his face. And in her eyes, for the first time, there was light. Far away, in the dark palace of the queen, a whisper spread among spies and soldiers. A human soldier, seen walking with a small alien girl, wearing a broken royal seal. The queen did not speak when she heard the report. She only whispered one word. "Hilary?" And her hands trembled. Jackson moved through the ruins like a ghost. Dust covered his uniform. Smoke marked his face. His eyes stayed sharp, one hand always near his weapon. But the weight on his back was not a gun or gear, it was Hilary. The alien princess lay inside a sling he'd tied from old cloth, her arms around his neck, her head resting on his shoulder. She didn't speak much, but sometimes she hummed softly, songs he didn't know, full of strange notes and sadness. They were crossing a world that hated them both. The war had turned into chaos. Soldiers didn't care about flags anymore. They cared about targets and bounties, and word had spread. There was a price on the human's head. But even more than that, there was a royal child, alive, and the one who found her could name their reward. One night, as they camped near a broken pipeline, Jackson checked the stolen datapad. He had picked up strange signals. A bounty list. His face was there. So was a description of Hilary. Possible royal blood. "Do not harm. Deliver alive," he swore under his breath. This just got worse. He shut the pad. Hilary was awake, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Bad news?" she asked softly. He gave a weak smile. "They're looking for you, and me, from both sides." "Why?" she whispered. "Because you're important, and I'm not supposed to have you." She was silent for a moment, then she said, "But I want to stay with you." Jackson looked at her. He didn't speak. He couldn't, because something in his chest ached. And it wasn't just from old wounds. The next day, they were spotted. 3 bounty hunters riding skybikes cut them off on a bridge made of collapsed ships. Jackson ducked behind wreckage, pulled his sidearm. "Hand over the alien girl," one shouted. "Or die!" Hilary held his arm tightly. "Papa!" Jackson fired once. The blast hit the hunter's arm, sending him crashing. The others fired back. Sparks flew. Jackson rolled, shielding the girl with his body. He took a hit on his shoulder. The pain was sharp, but he pushed through. With one last grenade from his belt, he tossed it under a bike. Boom! Metal flew, and silence returned. Breathing hard, Jackson checked Hilary. She was safe, shaken, but not hurt. He sat back, bleeding, and looked at the sky. "This is just the beginning," he said. "More will come." Hilary nodded slowly. "Why do you protect me?" Jackson wiped sweat from his brow. "Because someone should." They kept moving. Through forests burnt black by war, through ghost towns, through underground tunnels filled with echoes of dead things. Jackson taught her how to hide, how to stay quiet. She taught him alien words, words of warmth, words that made him smile, even in pain. And then, something changed. Hilary remembered something. One night, near a dried lake, she stood staring at the stars. Her hand touched the cracked medallion around her neck. "I see her in dreams," she whispered. "Who?" Jackson asked. "My mother. She wears fire. She cries when she sleeps." Jackson swallowed hard. "You remember?" Hilary nodded. "She called me her light." Jackson sat beside her. "She's still looking for you? Will she know me?" He smiled sadly. "She'll know your heart. That's what matters." Hilary reached up and held his hand. "Will you still be with me when I meet her?" Jackson looked away. "I don't know if she'll let me." Back in the capital, the Queen stared at a star map spy drones had sent. Photos. One blurry image caught her attention. A man, human, carrying a small girl with silver eyes. She stood slowly. "That's her," she said. A general beside her frowned. "Do you want him eliminated?" The Queen shook her head. "No." Her voice cracked. "I want to know why he's holding her like she's his child." But others didn't wait for her orders. Mercenaries, warlords, even rogue human commanders all began the hunt. Across a broken galaxy, everyone wanted the same prize. The girl, and the man carrying her. Jackson didn't know how long he had left. His wounds were getting worse. He was low on food, low on medicine, and the roads ahead were full of enemies. But when he looked back at the girl walking beside him, holding his hand, he remembered why he kept going. He didn't see an alien anymore. He saw his child, and nothing in the galaxy was going to take her from him. Not now, not ever. The wind howled across the wastelands. Black sand blew into Jackson's face as he walked with heavy steps. His arm was wrapped in torn cloth. Blood had dried on his sleeve. But he didn't stop. Yllari followed closely behind, holding the edge of his coat. She was tired too, her small feet dragging. Her silver eyes no longer sparkled, they only watched the ground. They had crossed broken cities and silent fields full of bones. Jackson knew they were being hunted. He saw the signs, fresh tracks, the buzz of distant drones, old signs flashing reward. But he also knew something else. They were close, just beyond the mountain range ahead, was the border of the Valdorian, Capital Zone home. If they could reach it, she might live. If not, he didn't want to think about it. That night they found a cave near the base of the mountain. It was small and cold, but it was safe, for now. Jackson started a fire using old wires and broken energy cells. Yllari sat beside him, quiet. Her hands were cold. Jackson took off his gloves and gave them to her. Here, these are warmer. She looked at him, surprised. But your hands will freeze. He smiled a little. My hands have seen worse. She held the gloves close. Thank you, Papa. That word hit him again, soft but full of meaning. He didn't correct her. He never could. While she slept curled in a blanket, Jackson looked through a cracked visor screen from an old helmet. He scanned the stars. But instead of comfort, he saw them, lights, ships. 2 of them, moving fast. Heading toward the valley they just crossed. He tensed. They're getting closer. The next day they climbed into the mountains. Sharp rocks cut their shoes. Snow fell lightly. Yllari slipped once. Jackson caught her even though it pulled on his wounded arm. He didn't flinch. We're almost there, he said, though he wasn't sure if it was true. She nodded, still trusting him, still calling him Papa. But as they reached a narrow cliffside path, a deep rumble shook the air. A gunship. Its engines echoed between the peaks. Jackson pulled Yllari into a crack in the rocks. The ship hovered above them. It had a scanner and a loudspeaker. Jackson, Kane, you are carrying royal property. Surrender the child and walk away unharmed. Yllari trembled. Jackson's jaw tightened. He whispered, They won't shoot the cliff. Too risky. He turned to her. Can you be brave again? She nodded. Slowly, he gave her a flash pellet. When I throw mine, you throw this behind us, then we run fast. She clutched it tightly. The ship moved closer. Jackson held his breath. Now. He tossed the first flash. Light exploded. Yllari threw hers. The rocks lit up white. Jackson grabbed her and ran along the cliff, half blind. Lasers blasted behind them, missing by inches. They dove into a cave just as the ship fired again, collapsing the entrance with a roar of falling stone. Darkness. Silence. Then coughing. Jackson turned on a small light. Yllari, I'm here, she whispered. He hugged her tightly, heart pounding. We made it, he said. She smiled faintly. They can't follow? He looked at the rocks behind them. No, he said. Not through that. But in his heart, he knew. They would keep coming. They rested in the dark cave for hours. Jackson's wound was worse now. Infection had spread up his arm. He tried not to show it, but Yllari saw his face. She touched his hand gently. You're hurting. I've had worse, he said, forcing a smile. She leaned into him. You should rest. I can't. Not yet. Why? He looked at her. Because I made a promise. To you. To get you home. She was quiet. Then she whispered something in her language. It was soft. Almost like a prayer. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Love. That night, far away in the capital, the queen walked alone in her private chamber. Her hands touched a small glass orb. It glowed. Inside it, a tiny voice played, recorded long ago. Mommy, I love you. Don't cry. The queen closed her eyes. A tear fell. Then a voice interrupted her thoughts. Your Majesty, said a guard. We've tracked them. They're alive. She turned slowly. Where? Crossed the northern ridge. They'll reach our border in 3 days, if they survive. The queen placed the orb down. Prepare my ship. Back in the cave, Jackson stared at the fire. Yulari lay asleep again, breathing gently. He didn't know if he would live to see the next day. But she would. Even if it cost him everything. The royal throne room was silent. No music, no voices. Only the slow, soft steps of the alien queen as she walked alone. Her robe of flame-colored silk dragged across the cold marble floor. Her crown, once a symbol of power, now felt like a chain around her head. She passed a giant mirror, but didn't look at herself. She didn't want to see the eyes of a mother who had failed her daughter. The queen stood at the edge of the high balcony looking over her half-broken kingdom. Fires still burned in the distance. Towers stood cracked. Refugees filled the lower cities. But her heart ached not for war, but for the child she'd lost, her youngest, her smallest, her light, Yulari. She remembered the girl's soft laugh, the way she ran barefoot through the gardens, the way she hugged without fear. And now, gone, banished in fire. But there was a whisper of hope. A soldier, human, seen carrying a small alien girl. A girl with royal markings. A girl who might still be alive. Do you believe this story? One advisor asked. The queen didn't answer at first. Then she said, a mother knows. Even if the child is with a human? I don't care, the queen said, voice sharp. If she breathes, if she lives, I will go to her myself. Far away in the mountain cave, Jackson opened his eyes. Pain shot through his arm. His wound had turned black. Breathing was harder now. He coughed blood into his sleeve. He looked at Yulari. She was still asleep, curled beside him. They couldn't stop. Not now. He took a breath, forced his body to move, and shook her gently. Yulari, time to go. Her eyes opened slowly. You're sick. I'm fine. He lied. She touched his forehead. You're burning. Jackson forced a weak smile. Then we better hurry before I melt. They left the cave, climbing down the far side of the mountain. It was a steep drop, but it was the last path to the capital. Every step was pain. But Jackson kept going, whispering stories to Yulari, anything to keep her calm. At one point he fell. Hard. He hit the ground and didn't move for several seconds. Yulari ran to him. Papa? His lips moved. I'm okay, she began to cry. Don't leave me. I won't, he whispered. Not until I see you safe. That night, as they hid in the tall grass near the capital border, Jackson collapsed. His fever was worse. He couldn't stand anymore. Yulari covered him with their last blanket. Don't close your eyes, she begged. Stay awake. He smiled weakly. Tell me about your mother. What does she look like? She's tall, Yulari whispered. Her voice is like music, but she never smiles anymore. She will, he said. When she sees you? What if she doesn't know me? She will, he said again. But I don't want to leave you. Jackson's eyes closed. You won't. At that moment, Engines roared above them. A royal ship landed nearby. Golden lights beamed across the field. Guards in shining armor stepped out, and behind them, a tall figure walked forward. The Queen. Yulari stood small and shaking. The Queen stared at her. Her lips trembled. Her steps slowed. Yulari. The little girl blinked, her eyes filled with tears. Mommy. The Queen dropped to her knees. She ran forward and pulled her daughter into her arms. Sobs broke the quiet night. I thought you were gone, the Queen cried. I searched every world. I was with him, Yulari whispered. The Queen looked up and saw Jackson. He lay motionless in the grass, barely breathing. She gasped. You brought her back. He opened his eyes for one last moment. She's home now, he said softly. The Queen stared at him. A human, her enemy, and yet her daughter's savior. Help him, she shouted to the royal healers. Now! Yulari held his hand. Please don't go, Papa. Please. The Queen watched this strange connection, this bond. She had power. He had nothing, but he gave her everything back. She took his hand in hers, and for the first time in years, the Queen wept, not for loss, but for love returned. The gates of the Valdorian capital opened for the first time in months. No soldiers marched, no horns blew, no war banners flew. Instead, there was silence, and in the middle of that silence, a small alien girl walked forward holding the hand of her mother, the Queen. Behind them, two royal healers pushed a hover stretcher. On it lay Jackson Kane, the human soldier. His face was pale, eyes closed, wound covered in silver healing gel. Machines buzzed beside him. His body was weak, but still alive. He had carried the princess across fire, blood, and shadow, and now he was the one being carried. The city froze as they passed. Civilians dropped their tools. Guards lowered their weapons. Children whispered, "Is that the lost princess? Is that the human they said was an enemy? He's the one who saved her." In the palace infirmary, the Queen stood beside Jackson's bed. She had not left his side since they arrived. Yulari sat nearby, holding his hand, whispering stories and songs from her memories. The royal doctors worked day and night. They used alien medicine and human tech combined. Something unheard of before. Something forbidden. But the Queen gave one order. Save him. On the third day, Jackson opened his eyes. Blurred lights, soft voices, and then a familiar face. Yulari. Tears filled her eyes. Papa. He smiled weakly. Hey, Starshine. The Queen stepped forward slowly. For the first time, Jackson saw her up close, not through fear, not through battle, but as a mother. Tall, glowing, her eyes full of strength and sorrow. Jackson Kane, she said softly. You brought my daughter home. He tried to sit up. Failed. You don't have to thank me, he said, voice rough. I didn't do it for reward. I know, she said. She bowed her head. I do not bow for humans, but for you, I do. A few days later, the royal court gathered. Nobles, generals, alien leaders from nearby stars. They came expecting war speeches or vengeance. Instead, the Queen walked in holding the hand of her daughter, and beside her, Jackson Kane, wearing simple clothes, no armor, no weapon. Gasps filled the room. A human in the royal court, alive, standing beside the Queen. She raised her hand. Silence fell. This man, she began, was our enemy. But when the galaxy turned to ashes and I lost what mattered most, he gave her back to me. She turned to Jackson. You could have sold her, used her, left her to die. You didn't. You protected her better than any soldier of mine ever could. The room stayed quiet. Then she said the words that shocked the galaxy. I name this human Protector of the Crown. Whispers exploded. Some were angry, some were confused, some were in awe. But no one dared speak against her. Because Yalari stood there smiling, her hand wrapped around Jackson's, and that truth was stronger than any law. That night, Jackson stood, alone on the palace balcony. Stars lit the sky. Peace had returned to the capital, for now. Yalari ran out and hugged his leg. "They're calling you a hero," he chuckled. "That's a first." "Will you stay here?" she asked. He looked at her. "Do you want me to?" "Yes." He smiled gently. "Then I will." Behind them, the queen watched in silence. She had lost hope once, but somehow it returned to her, in the arms of a human. And in her heart she knew her kingdom would never be the same again. And that was a good thing. A great celebration was held in Valdoria for the first time since the war. Banners danced in the wind, stars glittered above the palace. But the people weren't cheering for a victory in battle. They were cheering for something far greater, the return of the Queen's daughter. From every corner of the galaxy, guests arrived, leaders, soldiers, civilians, even enemies turned friends. They came to see the girl they believed dead, alive, and to see the human who had brought her home. Inside the royal garden, a special ceremony was being prepared. Lanterns floated in the air. The golden trees of Valdoria glowed softly, and in the center stood Yalari, wearing a dress of light blue silk and a new crown of silver leaves. She looked around nervously. "Where is he?" she whispered to a nearby maid. "He's on his way, Princess," the maid smiled. Moments later, a hush fell over the crowd. A figure stepped forward. It was Jackson. He wore royal white armor, polished but simple. On his chest was a new symbol, the mark of protector of the crown. He looked awkward in the spotlight, but his eyes searched for only one face. Yalari ran to him. "Papa!" He bent down and hugged her tightly. "You look like royalty," he said with a grin. "I missed you." She whispered, "I missed you more." The queen stepped forward next, her presence commanding yet warm. She stood beside her daughter and the man who had saved her. Then, in a voice that echoed across the garden, she spoke. "Let it be known," she began, "that this child, my daughter, was not brought back by armies or weapons. She was brought home by a man with no crown, no rank, and no reason to help." She looked at Jackson. He gave her food when she was starving, carried her when she couldn't walk, fought for her when no one else would, not as a soldier but as a father. The queen turned to her daughter. "My light, what do you wish to say?" Yalari took a deep breath. She stepped forward, facing the sea of alien and human faces. Her small voice rang with strength. "Mom, I'm back." Tears filled the queen's eyes. Yalari turned to the crowd. "He saved me. I was cold, scared, hungry. Everyone ran, but he didn't. He stayed." She looked at Jackson. "He's not my blood, but he's my family." Then she held up his hand. "And from this day forward, I want the whole galaxy to know. He is my papa." The crowd stood in silence. Then came the sound of one clap, then two, then all of them. Alien and human hands clapping together. A roar of joy. A wave of cheers. The stars seemed to shine brighter above. After the ceremony, Jackson stood near the edge of the garden away from the noise. The queen joined him. "You didn't have to stay," she said. "You could have left, gone home." "I know," Jackson said. "But I think I already found my home." The queen nodded slowly. "Then let me ask you something." "Yes?" She looked serious. "Will you help raise her? With me?" Jackson blinked. "You're asking me to be a father, officially, not just in her heart." Jackson looked toward Yalari, who was laughing with other alien children, finally safe, finally happy. Then he looked back. "Yes." That night, As stars fell like snow across the sky, Jackson tucked Yalari into her royal bed. "Tell me a story?" she asked. He smiled. "Which one?" "The one where a human found a lost princess." He sat beside her and began. "There once was a man with no home, a soldier tired of war, until he met a small girl who changed everything. Outside, the queen stood by the window. She watched the two of them, a mother, a daughter, and the man who had given them back to each other. In a galaxy full of enemies, they had found something rare, family, and in the heart of a war-torn world, hope was born again."